part-time people are getting 100% paid medical. They're getting their deductibles paid, their co-pays reimbursed. Who gets that in today's society? And none of the people in this township that are covered on our medical pay anything toward part of their medical insurance. I mean, you just, in this meeting today, you said let's get up to the new century. Let's be realistic here. No one gets that. You people, the senators and the congressmen might get that. But we're giving it to part-time people here in this town. I don't get it. That's a lot of money. Taxpayer dollars. The taxpayers in this town, they all pay into their medical. And you guys expect free medical. I just don't understand it. What's your reasoning about why you feel part-time people should get fully paid medical insurance in Nelson Township?
Let me just ask you, I need a little clarification on your definition of part-time people. What are you talking about?
Trustees, zoning inspector, and where you work, Tom, do they pay any? Do you have to pay part of your medical in Hiram?
That's immaterial, please.
Well, where I work, all the active people and all the retirees, they got to pay part of there. Everybody pays a partial payment of the. Nobody's expecting our employees to pay 100% for their medical. They should get something paid. But they should pay 35%, 50%, 25%.
I understand your concern, and I'm not the person to answer this question. I got to divert to you, Joe, because it really doesn't affect me.
Well, you know what? When Mike comes on there, these two are going to be on Medicaid. Medicare. You get yours through Hiram.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing here? I just, tell me what we're doing here, Joe.
I've tried on this before about getting the partial pay thing in for employees and everybody else. With the elected officials, the problem has been we can't change benefits midstream in the term.
Why not? Everybody else does.
No. The law says we cannot increase or decrease our benefits or our income, anything with midterm.
So that's why you wanted to get it today? Before we get into next year? That's why you wanted to rush it through?
No.
Before Mike got on the board?
Well, I'm not rushing anything through. We normally vote out this time of year so they can get the correct applications in for the new trustee. But Mike is going to be on Medicare. I'm on Medicare. That means the premiums just drop like a rock. So the township's saving a lot of money. By the other trustee being voted out, we're saving the better part of a couple $1,000s a month there because we're not covering that. The only spousal coverage is going to be Mr. and Mrs. Finney, and Mr. Finney is the most important person on this board, as far as I'm concerned. We can't change his benefits or the income, right, whatever, midterm with him. And with Mike and I going on, I think my premium is going to be $260 or $70, I believe, eventually, once Medicare kicks in. And we've talked about putting partial payment. We talked about doing it with the employees. We haven't followed through on it because of the existing board, and I think that's something we probably should have to look at towards the first of the year as well, as far as paying partial, because you're right, I agree with you 100%. Nobody gets 100% coverage. The fact is that with Mike on Medicare, me on Medicare, that's dropping the township saving a couple $1,000s a month right there. So we're actually ahead of the game if you look at it from that standpoint. But you have to pay a portion of it, like I don't know what it would be. I'm sure we can do that. But again, we can't change his. We've been trying to make it fair to everybody. When Wilson was on the board, we voted to get him reimbursed for the Medicare payment comes off of his Social Security, 100 and something a month. And since nobody else was paying at that time, he didn't feel it's fair for him, so we reimbursed him. There was other complications beyond that I won't get into. But you've got a good point, Dan, but it's not like part of the problem is, for the amount of time that's put into this thing, I mean, there's a whole lot of other things I can find to do for $700 a month that's a lot less stressful and time consuming than what this job is.
Well, everybody'd love to have free medical coverage,
Well,
Joe.
sure.
Everybody would love to have it. And you're telling me that if we hire a new employee during the year, since we can't make any changes, then that new employee wouldn't be able to be covered? Or if we fire an employee, that we got to pay him for the rest of the year?
I'm talking
We can't make any
I'm
kind of
talking
changes?
elected officials, not employees. That's a different matter. Employees we can change, I believe, if my memory serves.
Yes, absolutely.
But as far as elected officials, we cannot. That's the way the law reads.
However, you raise an interesting point, because we're at a point right now where it could change for
Well, I hope
term.
it changes in January, and I hope, it's my feeling, I hope that our employees should be like everybody else in this world and have to pay. I know it's a hard pill to swallow. I had to swallow it. I'm sure a lot of people did come up and pay a portion of their medical.
Trust me, I
And
pay
who
mine.
gets free deductibles and co-payments? Unless you're a senator or congressman, I've never heard of anybody getting that, other than Nelson
I
Township
paid
people.
my own insurance on my own shop for 40-some years, and believe me, it sucked me dry. I mean,
It's tough.
It is.
It's the whole problem for everybody, Joe.
I know, but I mean, mine was way up there, and it was gonna go up almost double, and no way I could do it. No, it was impossible. But anyhow, well, point well taken, Dan. We'll have to.
What's our medical insurance cost a year? 120,000?
Not quite that. About 100,000.
For how many people?
6.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
Like I said, it is going to drop considerably now since two of us.
That's a lot of money.
Yep, it is. It's going to drop though, which will help.
Our monthly premium, I got it on the list here.
Now, we don't cover our part-time help
Monthly premium 7,800.
on medical coverage.
Yeah, just
Our part-time.
Zoning inspector gets nothing?
Our part-time rookie person,
How many part-time people do we have?
one,
And she gets nothing.
nothing. It's an interesting thing. What do you think about just dropping coverage on trustees, period, Joe?
I think I'd be looking for another job. Basically, if you were on as a trustee, if you didn't have insurance through Hiram, would you be willing to do this? I mean,
you're looking at the same, you would be looking at the same benefit that I'm looking at from this job, right?
I guess
Right?
most of
It would be the same. So you're saying you would leave. I stay. Why is that? Yes, sir.
I think that's a good point. I think you should drop trustee coverage because you may have people running for the office just for benefits, not for the good of the township.
You have that. Yes, sir.
With the township trustees, I talked to Brian Miller, chairman of trustees, and the independent township trustees did not have insurance for their trustees. They thought that they couldn't afford it because, low income.
There are communities that don't. There are communities that just cover their workforce.
I mean, that's a possibility. I just want to clarify.
There are a lot of communities that do exactly what you're talking about, though, Dan. And that's been considered a benefit, I guess you would say. There are a lot of communities that provide medical coverage for their trustees. It's what people appear to be comfortable with. You heard Joe's response right there, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, to satisfy me, and I know you don't have to, I would like to see this thing look back in January when we get a full board here again.
The problem
And have
with
it
that-
take another look at it.
The problem with that is just what Mr. Leonard said. The term starts. Nothing can change for 4 years. if it's going to change.
Oh, now
it has
it's
to
4
change
years. I
now.
thought it was 1 year. I
No,
thought
4
it's-
years.
4-year
It's
term.
your term.
Oh, I understand that,
So these
but
gentlemen will just start their term in January. So whatever agreements are made will run through their term. It can't change mid-term, not mid-year, mid-term. So Mr. Finney and I are on whatever policy we're on until 2 years from now, when that term changes. That's why there's always been a difference, a discrepancy in that. Two people have, if the coverage changes, it got better for the people that when their term started, maybe it got better and one person was still left behind, if you will. You understand? I mean, I'm trying to be real clear.
yeah, I didn't know that
It's
it's
the
2
term.
and 2.
So if any decision is going to be made, it would have to be made before the term starts. It's just like raises. You can't vote more compensation within your term. It has to be for the next term coming up, which, you may not be part of.
Well, why is the vote taken today then instead of when he's on the board and now it affects them too? Aren't they the only two that vote on it? And why would they vote for you two guys? I mean, if it's not all put together, it's 2 and 2.
It has to change.
Why do we vote for it today for somebody that isn't sitting up there right now?
Because
The decision has to be made before they take office.
once they take office, they can't vote on that decision to be made. You understand? It affects them. And the term has started, therefore the change can't be made. If Joe and I agreed that the 3 trustees were not going to accept any medical compensation, then that would be okay for the next 4 years. That's the way it would be for the next 4 years for that term. Now, in 2 years, when these other 2 seats are up, that decision would have to be made then. Also, everything the status quo would continue for those 2 elected officials for the next 2 years, and then it would drop off. That's how it's done. So if the decision were made right now, and if the 3 trustees were to agree to not accept any medical coverage for the next 4 years, that's what a new trustee coming on would have to abide by for the next 4
understand.
years.
Okay.
That couldn't change.
Now,
But you can make changes for our full-time people at midstream.
yes.
Yes, hired people,
Employees.
employees.
Yeah,
Yes.
hired
Yes.
employees. Now, a person, as Mr. Tyler's done, he's just decided to waive the insurance. I could, if I were to volunteer, like, let's say they decided, elected officials were going to pay 20% of their insurance. It wouldn't affect me because I'm in the current term, but I could voluntarily accept that. I couldn't be mandated that I'd have to accept it, but I could voluntarily agree to the same compensation as the others. I could not make any decision that would increase my amount. You understand what I'm saying?
So before the end of the year, you could make a resolution that the people in the next 4-year term could pay X amount of percentage toward
Elected officials.
elected officials.
Yes.
Could possibly pay whatever percentage you come up with, and they could vote on that.
Mind you, those are 4-year terms and they're staggered, so that's what Mr. Finney was trying to explain.
Right, you two wouldn't be paying it, but they would be.
Every 2 years apart, yeah. And every 2 years apart, that would be subject to change. Quite frankly, I mean, if you want an honest opinion from me, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with the amount of work that the fiscal officer does. I have no problem with their medical coverage. They put in way more hours than any of us trustees would even come close to doing. And I wouldn't have a problem with their medical coverage staying exactly the same. The trustees, I agree with you. Well, obviously I agree with you because I'm not paying that. But even if I was, it is, you're absolutely right. I agree with what you say and what you say. It's a part-time position.